Hi everyone, welcome to Writing 428-523 User Experience Research and Design. My name is Professor Benningoff. You can call me Dr. B. I'm Steve. There's another Steve, and Steve Krause, who's also in the department. So you can call me whatever among those options there. Dr. B seems like a good compromise, so there's no confusion among Steves. So let's get started. Doing an overview of the Canvas site, the syllabus, and get everything rolling for this semester. It appears I've managed to, I'm not going to test things there because it seems like Camtasia is working, but we'll give it a shot and see how it's going here. So experience is a fascinating sort of topic and concept, and in where we are in the world now, your generation in particular has far more sort of emotional awareness and emotional intelligence than a lot of previous generations. And you're but there's still, I guess, a lot of awareness that can be added to think about emotion and how these things work. So TechCom in its history is all about getting, the keep it simple, stupid instructions that meet exactly the user's needs. But the problem is that things that are functional are not necessarily great. If you want to actually sell a product, if you want things to work better, then just being able to function, as one of my conference presentations said, it's like usable. Yes, it's usable, but is it useful? And that is a very different and in some ways more interesting question. Not that usability isn't interesting. It is in a bunch of ways. But it kind of goes back to when I was teaching one of my first technical communication classes way back in grad school at Purdue. And the website we were testing was for the students' rec center. And in doing that usability testing, it opened a door because the website didn't cover, obviously, a ton of the stuff that the Rex IM Center did. And also, it opened a door for us to think about how the Rec IM Center went about doing what it did. The intramural sports, training, access to pool, different kinds of things. And it was a way for us as technical writers to get involved in thinking about the strategic or the larger aspects of what goes on in that business or that class or that, right? So this is a way that user experience gets people who have writing training a seat higher in the hierarchy, right? So you get a chance to actually do strategic work when you're a writer in this way. You get to think about how should the system work, how should the product work, and it's also much more fun just getting to think about the possibilities for how things can work. So our course, I'll just kind of cover our description here: research techniques for investigating user experience, advocating on behalf of users, designing and writing text based on that research. The course is a workshop, so it'll be a very collaborative and communal class. A lot of the credit comes from the discussions that you guys have. Of course, you'll also be turning in your projects, but there's a big chunk of the course is participation, and then also the better everyone participates, the better everybody understands, and the better feedback everybody gets on projects, the better everyone will do. So here's our sort of overview schedule. It sort of maps out the modules. And it's funny, whenever you sort of map things out this much, I've already realized that I swapped the player character sheet into week 1, and I'll probably be doing the brainstorming mind map in week 2 because it seemed like people could wrap their heads around the player character sheet, and then that would be a good inventional strategy for thinking about the mind map of the areas of experience as well. So It's not that the brainstorming mind map's going away. It's just that I've already sort of swapped something right off the bat. So the first third of the course or so is a sort of user experience discovery journal. And in weeks 2, 3, and 4, you'll be writing, you'll be doing mind maps of different sort of experiences that you could use as potential reflection and maybe potential research sites. If you have a job, if you play a sport, if you do a different kind of activity, or it could be about a class and you think about the complexity of different sorts of experiences, almost any job, almost any kind of situation. This can be very useful reflecting on, and then we'll be pulling that together to make a portfolio. The other pieces that will be in that portfolio, there will be the player character sheet, an introduction memo that is a more formal sort of traditional document, but then we'll be going into more about what that needs to do. And then you're also going to get a chance to do an introduction that is a short podcast, short video cast, one of those. And then what you'll do is you'll be looking across these different sort of documents and thinking about the different kinds of experiences they engender. And that should be really fun and really interesting. The middle third of the course is doing some of these research methods from the books that we'll have. Things like user journey mapping, problem mapping, prototyping, and these things will be done on a topic that hopefully comes out of your initial portfolio. And the final third of the class, pardon me, is us then taking that research work and putting together a short sort of presentation and a business report, a recommendation report out of that work. So that's the rough outline of the semester. The textbooks that will be required are this Universal Methods of Design and the Design Thinking Playbook. They are not very expensive. The first one's $23, second one's $22.55 from Amazon. I've got the links there. We're also going to be reading and thinking about Donald Norman, was one of the people who first got into design and user experience. And he has a great book called The Design of Everyday Things. Now, I'll have PDFs of this, so you don't have to buy it, but the book's only $12.79, so it'd be something I think it's just a really interesting read and a good purchase. For the grad students, there's one other book called Rhetoric and Experience Architecture, edited by Michael Salvo and Liza Potts. And that's a fantastic book because it puts all of these different, or I didn't say all, but a lot of different user experience activities inside a rhetorical and writing framework. So it really helps get a bigger picture on how this stuff works. We will read a couple of those things in PDF, but if you that's a book that's worth getting if you were thinking about it. All right. For the digital texts, you're going to want to try to figure out a way to consistently take notes on the reading. And one of the best ways, of course, is the most old school way. There's been a lot of research that shows if you write things by hand, you remember them better. And so it's a good idea to have a nice notebook that you're going to keep your information from the class in. And as you read those things, to sort of jot down your notes as you go. You'll be doing a reading journal to turn in. And in that reading journal, I'll be asking you to a set of specific questions that you'll be creating right away that will make sure that you're engaging with that text. And doing it on paper doesn't help you, so you're not like typing it straight from one to the other. But that's probably better in terms of your retention and memory of what we go over. And I'll go into like what that does. The first thing that the reading journal does is, as you say, with the exigence, like what's the need? And it's a little tricky writing this because sometimes when people write They don't necessarily tell you, well, I'm writing this because you people, my audience, need to think differently about this. They don't really come out and say that because that can get in people's faces. But that is the gist. Nobody writes just because. If somebody's saying, I'm telling you, they're saying, I'm telling you because I believe there's reason for us to think about this, there's a problem, right? And it's not just one thing in any given piece. It's usually a series of questions, but you get the idea that you have to really read and think about why, who is this person writing to? What is it that they think we need to know, or we need to do differently or think about differently? Second part of the reading journal is then saying, okay, what is the author's sort of response to that problem statement? And I say it in singular, but obviously it can be usually a series of exigences and a series of responses. Then another thing you're going to write in that journal is, okay, how can you connect? Like, can you relate to the problem? Can you relate to the response? What experiences, activities of yours can you connect? Because the ultimate goal of any college course is for that information to not stay in the classroom, or in this case, on the website. The information is for you to take out with you and use in other places. And so that's why it's so important that you figure out, well, how can I compare to what they're talking about here? What are examples, ideas? And this is always a big focus on my approach to teaching. Some of the other things that you'll do in those journals, you're going to write down what seem like the key terms and give short little definitions, what you think they mean. You don't have to quote dictionary definitions or other things, but yeah, I want to know that you get the gist of what that word's about. And a key thing is to capture what are some of the most important quotes that come out of there. And then lastly, what are 2 or so questions that the reading makes you wonder about? So that'll be going in those reading journals, and then we'll be discussing a lot of these things, which will help with people relating and connecting to the reading. And then the online format and attendance. So since it's an asynchronous class, but learning is social, and we learn best from other people. So it's all about that participation. And some of this is just hey, make sure you are connected, make sure you're on every day. I don't want to go over too much of that, but yeah, you've got to you got to stay with it. It's a participate all the way through class. Now, the discussions in particular, the graded discussions we'll have, you guys will have at least 3 posts for every sort of reading that we do that way. And the first post will be just your response. It doesn't, not like your whole reading journal or anything like that, but one key question or idea that that you want to bring up, and potential questions for things you want to wonder what your classmates think about. You want to show that you read and that you've found some interesting spots in the text. Now, everybody posts, and you can't see anybody else's posts before you post. And then the key thing here is for you to respond to other people's posts, you need to respond at least 2 times, and all these have to be 6 hours apart. So the idea here is to avoid the kind of post and go, where people are only caring about doing their own work and not caring about helping other people or doing what else we need to do. That's why we need to have the discussion this way. In the past, this has been absolutely fabulous. My last online class where we did this sort of discussion format, I several times had to write a post that said, do you guys realize how great it is, the stuff that you're saying? So sometimes recognizing the way that students are actually doing the discussion and carrying out exactly what the class is about isn't necessarily evident at first, because that idea, I'm just doing what they tell me to do. No, you're doing really good thinking. And so, yeah, so the basic idea here is that the grades for the online discussion really go back to, did you get your stuff in, and did you do the responses, and did you do it on time? And so the sort of scale is there. Let me know if you have questions about that. But yeah, it needs to be like one post, then 6 hours, then another post, then 6 hours, then another post. Okay, so the project here, the projects for the class, the first part is the experience exploration portfolio that I went over before, the UX research activities, and then the presentation and recommendation report. The bottom here has just resources if you need them. EMU has a lot of resources that can help you out based on whatever needs you have. So that's our quick sort of overview of the syllabus and the course. And it's going to be great working with you. I look forward to getting to know all of you better and having a great class.